Hello and welcome to the shop. My name is Mike, and this is Props to History. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and make sure you hit the little bell to get your notification when a new video drops. Oftentimes in film, you will see paintings or artwork on the walls in the background as set decoration. Well, where does Hollywood get that? They're certainly not going to Goodwill or a secondhand store, purchasing up huge piles of paintings and just throwing them on the wall. The reason for this is because they don't own the rights to them. So for a painting to be on the wall in a film or TV show, the TV show itself, the production company, has to own the rights to that painting. So sometimes they will actually commission artists to do work, or they will find an artist that has done the work and then they will pay the licensing fee to be able to use it. Sometimes, however, Hollywood creates paintings specifically for a film. And sometimes that painting is specific to the film and to the story, like the painting from Harvey. That painting was directly tied to the film production company, they owned that painting. But one of the most famous paintings in film history was so much a part of the story that it was a character unto itself. In 1989, Ghostbusters 2 was released, and it introduced into the Ghostbusters universe a brand new villain, Vigo the Carpathian. Now, according to in-universe history, Vigo the Carpathian was a 16th century tyrant in Carpathia, and he had such titles as the Scourge of Carpathia, the Sorrow of Moldavia, Vigo the Cruel, Vigo the Torturer, Vigo the Despised, and according to Peter Venkman, Vigo the Butch. The evil spirit of Vigo the Carpathian is largely trying to kidnap the baby of Dana Barrett, played by Sigourney Weaver. Now, the baby was played by twins, Henry and William Deutschendorf. The actor, Wilhelm von Homburg, who played Vigo the Carpathian, his name, along with the name of the babies, were combined to create the in-universe full name of Vigo, which was Vigo von Homburg Deutschendorf. They just used the actors' names. Vigo is represented by a painting, which was actually 10 feet tall and still survives today in the Lucasfilm archives. But there were parts where the actor, Wilhelm von Homburg, actually came out of the painting. How did that happen?
Hi, my name is Leslie Turnbull, and my career, I've been an artist my entire life. I started working at the pageant of the Masters in Laguna Beach, and it's basically theater. It was a great educational experience for an artist, because I had to take apart each artwork I was doing, whether it was Sargent or Da Vinci or Monet or any artist. We did everything, and I had to inspect just every brushstroke and try to imitate that. After I left that, I moved to Northern California, had 2 young kids to raise, and I met someone up there, a design firm, and I ended up just doing the same sort of thing. He was doing this thing called the Flower Show. It was Sonoma County, it was the wine country, and it was the Harvest Fair. And there was this gigantic hangar at the fairgrounds, and I would do murals on either end. And then I got in, I can't remember how, but I got into the a local 816, which was the Scenic Artists Union, and there were a lot of films being made up there at the time. So they hired me to work on, the first one was Scream with Wes Craven, and it was a wonderful experience. I moved back down here and did some more, I just sort of segued into Hollywood. It was tough because it was union work and I had kids to feed, and it was hit and miss. It was tougher than being up north, very competitive. So then somehow, I can't remember how, I went and applied for work with a scene shop, this guy who did a lot of Disney stuff. So I went up there, I interviewed with him, I had my resume, and he's like, well, we'll call you maybe. So months went by and nothing happened, and then I just got a call out of the blue, and it was, hey, this is Disney calling you, Imagineering, and we've got a couple of jobs, are you interested? And they were very busy at the time. We have a couple of jobs, are you interested? And one was SQS, called Show Quality. I was like, well, sure. So, and that was, I've been there ever since, working for Imagineering, and I'm now senior production designer, mostly art director for the animatronic figures, and I do murals and I do concept art. And it'll be 23 years in August.
Hi, my name's David Reimer. I'm a painter, sculptor, and scenic artist. I just to paint, just regular paintings. I do sculpting. I've worked at the Pageant of the Masters for my whole adult life, off and on. Half time I work for them, and the other half of the year I work for myself or for other operations. And as far as the theater goes, I've done a lot of stuff in the theater. I painted murals with Leslie for different places. And then working at the pageant, that's where the Ghostbusters thing came up, because they asked us to reproduce, do a painting that comes to life. So they called on us, and through the director, we came down and we just started, got the job working for them, doing that. And there's some commercials I've done, various things, but that's the main thing as far as the movies goes, that's for sure.
Right. Now you started out, you both kind of worked in the same side of doing the living paintings, didn't you?
At the pageant, doing living painting.
Yeah. And you were approached by the production staff of Ghostbusters 2 to create what is arguably one of the biggest pop culture icons from science fiction from the late 80s, Vigo the Carpathian. And you created not only the painting, but you created his wardrobe.
Yeah, we constructed the set, painted it, had a sculptor build the foreground with the skulls on it. Mm-hmm. Then we painted that. There's a costume department. They got the costumes put together, and we painted the costumes so they all blend together.
Yeah. And
then we took it up to ILM, and they got the actor to do his part, got him in there, and got his hair and makeup going.
Yeah.
Well, they had to also do stills of him in the set, so that just like the pageant, they transformed it into a two-dimensional. So that's where you get the painting. Mm-hmm. So they photographed the set with him in it, and then made a blow-up of the photograph to make it look like a painting.
So he was going to be in the painting and then talking and moving, so he'd be like half painting.
Right.
He'd be coming out of the painting as like in the movie.
So this is one of the special effects overlays from Ghostbusters 2. So what we're actually seeing here is not a physical painting, it's a photograph. It's
a photograph of the set we made and painted, yes.
Okay, so was there ever actually a full painting?
Yes. And they did, if you remember the film, there's a scene where he steps out, Vigo steps out and comes away from the painting. So that's the actual painting. And I think he walks over to get the baby Oscar.
Yeah.
At that time, yeah.
Now, when did you realize, or did you think at the time when this whole process started of being approached to create Vigo, that it would become this wildly popular thing like it's become in the last 5-6 years?
Absolutely not.
It was just a job at the time, yeah.
And it seems to be getting bigger.
It does, yeah. And he's, if I'm not mistaken, the full-size painting was about 10 feet tall.
It was huge.
Yeah, it was absolutely massive. And then how many versions of it were created?
Just
all
the one,
told?
right?
I don't know how many versions were created.
Because it was slightly different from the way you originally painted it to where it was used on screen.
There was some altering that they had done to the backdrop after we sent it up to them.
Mm-hmm. I think they took the picture of the set with the painting in the background, him in the foreground, and the skulls in the foreground, they were dimensional, then him, then a painted backdrop in the back. And so I took a picture of that. And then they did like a G-clay thing and put it onto a stretcher frame. I think at that point, somebody started messing with it, adding their personal touch to it. So it's a little bit different.
Slightly different, but not enough to make a huge difference.
No, I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know there was a difference. But if you painted it,
But they admitted they were not happy with what they had done. They preferred what we had done.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't actually like what they had created after the fact.
Not as much as ours.
Well, yeah. Well, yours was clearly perfect.
Absolutely.
And how do you react to this? Like, I know that when I approached you about this, and through our mutual friend Kevin about talking to you about this, you were kind of flabbergasted that people cared. Do you still feel that way about it, or?
Yeah, it's really neat. As an Imagineer, I give tours a lot, and we have people from Pixar and the studios come down and come to Disneyland and go up to the Club 33, and we give them these wonderful tours. But when they hear that I did Vigo, they just are jaws drop.
That's all that matters anymore. Yeah,
It's pretty
Well,
cool.
so many people have seen the painting, and so many people have seen the movie. It's so popular, and it's on TV all the time. So that's why it's like all the stuff we've done for like a commercial. They do a commercial for something, and it's done. That's it's not famous. And tableaus at the pageant. People, if you're in it, you think, oh, that's great. They go, oh, you did that, and blah blah blah. They're all excited, but it's just so many people have seen the movie. Obviously, it gets more popular all the time, and more people see it.
So when you were first approached to create Vigo, did they give you concept art, or was it
Yes.
completely up to you how it was done?
There was a concept piece we worked from, drawing with a very dramatic sky, I remember, and a sort of rudimentary Vigo. But it was just sort of kind of cartoony, as I recall.
It was illustrated.
Yeah, very
Illustrativeness. It wasn't really that
Graphic.
detailed. It was a watercolor. It was kind of a quick watercolor of it.
And now, having come from like the art pageantry that you had done, when you first walked onto this set, and this was the first really major film you'd ever worked on, it's a completely different world, obviously. Did it just completely blow you away to see everything that was involved in this process?
It did me, because at the time they were working on The Abyss, the final Indiana Jones film, and I think Back to the Future.
Didn't they get a picture of you wearing the Indiana Jones hat and the whip? Didn't we go in some place? Did they get a picture of you dressed up as?
I went
Like
into
with the actual props from the
I
film?
went into the prop closet and someone said, hey, here's the Indy bomber. Oh, and look, here's his hat and whip. So I said, I'm going to put it on, take my picture. So I did.
And then we got to go to the place where the matte painters were.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a bunch of Indiana Jones matte paintings
Yeah.
and Wookiee Village or something.
No, it was Mark Sullivan's studio and all of the matte paintings, because you have to remember this was the transition to CGI.
It was in between,
It was
yeah.
right before. So everything was hand painted, handmade, practical, and it was just like being in this amazing museum. But going up and meeting Mark Sullivan and looking at all those wonderful stills, and I recognized all of the movie stills, and they were all in glass, and they were just set in these wooden bins, separated. But I mean, it was mind-boggling.
Because when they did it, they would like paint the backdrops, and then they would carve out. They'd take a real set movie or something. They would put them together. Then copy, take a picture of them together. And I guess they're on glass because they could scrape off the
Oh, yeah,
paint,
it's all glass.
so we all fit together better.
Now, would it surprise you to find out that one of the hats from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, one of those actual screen-used hats, sold recently for $560,000?
I know, I think I heard that.
And just popped it on. But,
I have a picture of it somewhere.
I mean, of course, this was back in the day when, particularly in the late 80s, no one really cared about that stuff like they do today. I was just actually at Prop Store, a company that I work with regularly. They had one of the hats from Temple of Doom, and it cleared for like $360,000. But I love the stories when you talk to folks that worked on the stuff back in the 80s and the early 90s.
I don't know how much those
just like
paintings, all those matte paintings would go for.
Insane
awesome.
money, absolutely insane money, and particularly now, like there's been this massive resurgence in nostalgia. Particularly, like a lot of people were stuck in lockdown, which I think leads a lot to Vigo's resurgence in popularity, because a lot of the younger generation have discovered Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, and then with Ghostbusters Afterlife having come out, everybody's starting to discover it more and more and more. And that image, that absolutely legendary image that you created of Vigo the Carpathian, is now this absolutely massive pop culture icon. And it's awesome to sit here and talk to you and to hear about how it was created. Now, do you consider that like one of your best pieces you've ever done, or do you have a favorite piece that you've worked on that isn't anything like Vigo? I know that Vigo was just a job at the time, but
That was a pretty special, different thing. I mean, we did the pageant for so many years, and David's still doing it, where we do these massive, paint big, and I've done a lot of that work. And I enjoyed all of that. But Vigo was very special. That was just a great time to be at ILM.
yeah.
There was so much going on, from, watching them make the slime river and the little bathtub, but also being up there in the studio and seeing the different scale models of like the Millennium Falcon. I mean, it was all there, and it was eye-popping. And then to work with someone like Dennis Muren, who's just You know, I mean, he's
An absolute legend.
absolute legend.
Wow.
And I knew it at the time. A lot of people, you know, they're sort of fascinated with the stars. I liked seeing the behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah,
They were my heroes.
There was
Me
one scene
too.
that was funny. There's one scene that was funny that when the guy dressed up like the Statue of Liberty, he was crushing the streets.
Yeah.
They had like a little model of the streets, and then I remember we went into dailies and they could check the dailies, and the guy would just show him kind of with his big suit on, crushing the city, and then when he's taking a break, he has like a straw going through the nose so he could drink because
And
it's
he
like
was wearing
150 degrees in there.
Birkenstocks or something. Birkenstock, and there were safety pins in the back. Yeah, that was funny. But you know, I have to say, when I went back up there about 10 years later, and I had been working on films and theater, I did, I think, a commercial up there. So I went back into the studio, into ILM, and I walked up, and up on the proscenium was R2-D2, C-3PO, and Vigo.
Right.
Because that's where he is today too. He
think
still
it's
is
still
a part
up
of the
there.
Lucasfilm archives, and I know that the Lucasfilm archives, they're getting ready to open a museum with
Oh,
their
he's gotta
collection,
be there.
and I do believe Vigo's going to be there. So I would love to go to that museum with you guys just to see that, because that would be fantastic to go view the original Vigo with you.
It'd be a blast.
Yeah, it would be so much fun. Well, I really do appreciate your guys' time. It's been fantastic to meet you and to sit and chat about this and to tell people the story of how Vigo was created, and more specifically to tell people who created Vigo. So thank you very much.
We're glad to have a part in it. That's really comes down to.
It's fun to relive
It's
it.
just because all movie makers, so many people involved.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you for creating Vigo and being a part of the creation of Vigo. Thank you again. This has been Props to History.